Chapter 25, Re-Incarnation. The question of progress after the close of the material life, and, especially, continued progress throughout eternity, is a stumbling block for many in their search for truth. The old idea of complete knowledge and perfection of character for the select few who would be privileged to walk the golden streets, still clings with many, together with the idea that those who miss this happiness must spend eternity in some other place. Some believe that we are allowed another chance in a second existence on earth. If one admits the possibility of continued progress, it is difficult to comprehend an eternity of it without reaching perfection. So, it seems, we have then three chances: an immediate perfection, a perfection reached through reincarnation, or else perfection through continued progress, a similar result in either hypothesis. But perfection is the Buddhistic idea of nirvana, a conception very unsatisfying to many. In these communications we are taught so earnestly that personality persists throughout eternity, that there seems to follow of necessity a different conception of perfection, not a perfection of one, but a perfection of many parts that make a whole. This is illustrated very effectively in a presentation of the case that I read not long ago. This illustration compared the perfected whole with a complete orchestra, in which the differentiation and increased ability of each performer reached its highest attainment when each contributed most harmoniously toward the perfection of the ensemble. Thus the expression in the chapter on progress, always acquiring, always giving out, would mean when applied to the orchestra, always improving the performance of each instrument, but always in a manner that most suitably adds to the general result. The more complete the individuality of each in relation to the whole, the more perfect is the whole. If one accepts the ideas of continued progress and persistence of individuality, there is then no need for the theory of reincarnation, which, after all, is only a theory, and the quotations given below carry much force. In a number of books which offer records of spirit communication, the theory of reincarnation is fully set forth. We were reading one of these in which the opinions of the one speaking were quite positively expressed. It did not satisfy us, and we turned to Mary for explanation. She asked who was sending the messages. We gave her the name and she replied,
"I will send a messenger to find him and have him come to this circle if possible."
After a little while she continued,
"He is here and wishes to speak. He wishes to state his own ideas on certain subjects, and we have promised to let him have his say."
Then the following was written.
I have indited several books from here, most of which are true, as I see the truth. Your instructor believes differently, so I will tell you my position. I believe in reincarnation, and I believe in evil as a living entity. The evil go down inevitably, and as they progress in wickedness, the possibility of becoming angelic decreases as a matter of course. There is no hope for them but to become reincarnated and start over again.
The writing was interrupted at this point, but another evening it was resumed.
I am a believer in reincarnation, and in the philosophy of the Eastern adepts. They are from birth more occult than the Western world, and nearer the unseen truths of life, both here and there. They believe that when a soul departs from the body it either ascends or descends according to its life on the earth plane. When it ascends it goes upward into that state of highest incomprehensible bliss called nirvana, or it descends until the whole being becomes so evil that nothing but rebirth can start it upward again. It may reappear in the form of an animal and have all the upward way to travel over again. But it has the chance at least of becoming a pure spirit, and so of reaching nirvana at last.
The writing stopped and we asked, "Then only evil is reincarnated?" Mary replied,
"He is gone, but we think that is his belief.
Then she continued,
He is strongly hypnotized by his earthly studies and beliefs, and it may be long before he comes out of them. But he will drop these ideas sometime. His belief in nirvana is the most dreary part of it, an endless inactivity of contemplating one's own bliss. The reincarnation of the evil ones is not so bad in principle, although we here cannot see how the soul can go back to animal life again, having once been human."
Then she added so emphatically the pencil nearly tore the paper.
Our teachers from the higher planes say nothing of the kind ever happens.
Our various readings brought up the subject several times, and Mary stated further.
Many spirits here keep their belief in reincarnation for a time, and send back messages to the world stating this belief. But there is no such thing as physical reincarnation. Once a spirit, always a spirit. The progress goes on from here instead of beginning all over again in some earthly career. Some get confused in trying to tell of the intelligence that may return to earth to help others, just as our knowledge of this life is returning to help you. Also, a few great leaders are allowed to impress their greatness upon such minds there as can receive. But try to understand rebirth as a progression only, and from that further height sending greater truths to earth. Philosophers here often carry their theories too far, just as some do on earth. That is one of the things people must learn before trusting spirit messages too completely.
She re-expressed this again.
Many here express reincarnation as a bodily rebirth, whereas it is only a mental or a spiritual influence that returns and often surrounds a loved one there, or often enlarges the genius, or makes the wisdom higher and finer. Influence from here is constantly going earthward, but it is wrongly stated by those who believe in physical rebirth. There is no such thing, the higher teachers tell us. And surely, progress on this side is far easier than the blundering of earthly lives, no matter how often repeated.
We have not believed in it, but there seem to be some otherwise fine teachers there who teach reincarnation.
Do not let that worry you. Knowledge is not centered in any one teacher. Only, I would, of course, accept the divine teachings of Christ, or the higher wisdom coming from the Most High.
Again the subject was mentioned when we asked, is space infinite?
The space called heaven has no confines, neither has creation any end. The creative power is infinite. Mind does not stop and stagnate nor lose its power of progression. Many finite minds are puzzled over the thought of eternal progression, and have fallen back on the resort to reincarnation, that is, a time of silence, and a beginning over again of a mortal life. But this is not so. We progress from plane to plane and sphere to sphere. But the mind must be in touch with infinity to realize what eternal progression and eternal occupation mean.
It is quite common for the writing to begin like the following, but this about reincarnation came as an entire surprise, as we had not even been thinking of the subject for some time.
Mary and Dee are here. What do you wish?
Have you anything you wish to say to us first?
We are not very talkative tonight. We have just been in a circle where talking seemed out of date, where we felt the silence almost oppressive. We have been in a circle where they seem possessed with the reincarnation idea, and each was trying to look backward to his other former incarnations. We had no former incarnations to study, so silence was our only act.
Did you learn anything that you can tell us, especially how they came to believe it?
Mary thinks it logical enough. They cannot comprehend an unending life unless it culminates in nirvana, and so they grasp the idea of returning circles or cycles of life on earth, a new experience each time. And this may go on indefinitely, especially in the case of wicked ones who expiate their sins by becoming animals and evolving upward through the slow-moving centuries.
Do they not progress enough to hear your teachers?
No, that is the trouble. They become absorbed in the one idea and may keep it for uncounted years.
If we have had no former spirit life, how did we begin? Is it simply by a splitting off from parent life analogous to the physical beginning?
I know of nothing more than that. The individual life begins with the birth of the individual, and the human being has the capacity for spirit life and the development into immortal existence. I have never studied all the philosophy or psychology of the subject. To tell the truth, it has never interested me. I love this life, I feel the upward longing. I am sure that I will progress from here and not return to the old dismal earth. So that my longings have never led me into the study of the possibilities of prenatal existence. It does not seem to me worthwhile. The reincarnationists have no proof except in their own imaginations.
Chapter 26, Spiritualism and the Bible. Among those who disapprove of any attempt to fathom the mysteries of the unseen life, the ministers of the gospel are perhaps the most earnest in counseling their followers to avoid the entire subject. They hear of mysterious seances, of fraudulent mediums, of weak minds tottering over into insanity, and the whole subject seems to them bound up in deceit, fraud, and the vain imaginings of the subliminal mind. Yet they lose sight of the fact that the Bible itself is a repository of psychic experiences, and they seem to forget that good and evil have strangely intermingled since the world began, superstition, false doctrines and fearful cruelty, as in the days of inquisitorial practice, having many times invaded the church itself. Through long ages it has been the effort of spiritual teachers to discern the truth, to separate it from the false, and to draw nearer and ever nearer the divine and absolute knowledge. Shall we not accord the same patience and discernment to a subject which surely is of supreme importance? Charles L. Tweedale, an English vicar, has been so impressed with the importance of supernormal revelation, and, through his work among all sorts and conditions of men, so impressed with the conviction that a more intense and vital belief in the reality of life after death is one of the urgent needs of the times, that he has published a book, giving, first of all, the scriptural proofs of resurrection, and adding to these, psychic experiences of his own and of many acquaintances. A careful study of the Bible, he declares, reveals a record of almost continuous supernormal experiences, and these experiences he has taken pains to classify under their proper heads, as clairvoyance, levitation, strange sounds and supernormal lights, appearances of spirit hands and the touch of discarnate beings, automatic writing, sounds of music and other manifestations. All are very similar to the psychical experiences of today. I would like to add, a little more in detail, a few of the New Testament examples that are very indicative of the good that came to the early disciples through spiritual guidance. One instance occurs after the stoning and martyrdom of Stephen, and the bitter persecutions of the Christians immediately following. So great was this persecution that the disciples scattered, and one of them, Philip, went down to the city of Samaria to preach. While there, an angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise, go towards the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert, explicit directions, which Philip obeyed. And far out on this highway he saw a chariot, and in the chariot sat a trusted official of Queen Candace, the queen of the Ethiopians. A trusted official indeed, for he had charge of all the queen's treasure. He was returning from Jerusalem, and, resting in his chariot, was reading from one of the prophets. And again Philip became clairaudient and heard the words, Go near and join thyself to this chariot. Philip obeyed the voice, and then occurred the conversation with the Ethiopian that ended in his conversion and baptism. Perhaps more important yet is the incident told in the 10th chapter of Acts, in which a Roman centurion became both clairaudient and clairvoyant. This centurion saw in a vision an angel of God, in another place described as a man in bright clothing, who said to Cornelius, Send men to Joppa and call for one Simon whose surname is Peter. He lodgeth with one Simon, a tanner, whose house is by the seaside, he shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. Again explicit directions. And Cornelius called 2 of his house servants and a devout soldier of them that waited upon him continually, in other words one of his bodyguard, and sent them to Joppa. But how was this message of Cornelius, a Roman soldier, to be received by Peter, a Jew, to whom it was unlawful, being a Jew, to fraternize with, or to visit one of another nation? How indeed, except through a heavenly command that was higher and more compelling than Jewish law? For Peter was on the housetop of this seaside home of Simon, the tanner, and while there, he fell into a trance. These are the words, he fell into a trance, and saw, as it were, a great sheet, knit at the 4 corners, and let down to earth, wherein were all manner of 4-footed things and creeping things and fowls of the air. And Peter heard, clairaudiently, the words, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter objected, saying, I have never eaten anything common or unclean. Then the voice said, What God hath cleansed, that call not thou common. Then Peter wondered what the vision could mean, and as he wondered, the messengers from the Roman, Cornelius, arrived, and as they waited for Peter below, once more Peter heard the voice, "Behold, 3 men seek thee. Go with them, for I have sent them." Thus through Spirit guidance, through vision and voice, began Peter's ministry to the Gentiles. And the power of that vision is present today, for we are Gentiles. Saul, afterwards called Paul, a spectator at the stoning of Stephen, and he himself, breathing out threatening slaughter against the Christians, went to the high priest for letters to the synagogues of Damascus, so that if he found any of the hated sect on the way, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem, then started on his way to Damascus. And on the way, suddenly a great light shone around him and a voice said, "Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? I am Jesus whom thou persecutest." And instantly the whole inner nature of the man changed, and, blinded by the vision, he was led to Damascus. In Damascus was a devout man who by both vision and voice, was commanded to heal Paul of his blindness. No wonder that this disciple hesitated, because of the evil Paul had done to the Christians in Jerusalem, and a second time the command came. Then he obeyed, and Paul received his sight. And this former ruthless, cruel enemy of Christianity became, to use his own words, obedient to the heavenly vision, and from that time on became the apostle, philosopher, orator, skillful expounder and defender of the Christian religion. In his ministry, led by voice and vision, he was forbidden to preach the word in Asia, not allowed to go into Bithynia, yet called over to Macedonia to help, in Corinth told by heavenly voice, "Be not afraid, but speak and hold not thy peace," and in that wonderful shipwreck off Malta, heard the cheering words of the angel who appeared to him, saying, "Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar, and God hath given thee all them that sail with thee." Later, to the people of Corinth, Paul said, "I will come to visions and revelations of the Lord," and tells of a man in Christ, whether in the body or out of the body, I cannot tell, God knoweth, caught up unto paradise, and heard unspeakable words which it is not lawful for a man to tell. And to the Hebrews, he speaks of their being compassed about by so great a cloud of witnesses, and again later, he exclaims, "Are they not all ministering spirits, sent forth to minister to those who shall be heirs of salvation?" Was it not through this inspiration of vision and voice that the early Christians were so strengthened that they could endure the terrible privations and persecutions of that time? Is it not possible that vision and voice may in these later days, strengthen those who are working for that new day when justice and kindness shall prevail, and all nations at last be brought together in the bond of brotherhood? Is it not possible, as one has suggested, that the second coming of Christ may mean, not that Christ shall descend into the material, but we ascend into the spiritual? We were speaking of the Bible one evening and Mary said,
The essential parts of the Bible are the ethical teachings and the sacred example of the Christ. The earth needed Christ, and he came. The earth still needs him, and his influence is still here. But many are deaf and blind to this influence, and because this is so, war still desolates the earth, and selfishness and crime sometimes blot out the law of unselfishness and love that he gave his life to teach.
We asked if Christ was near to those on that plain.
Christ is exalted to the heavens above, but he is as the elder brother and the guide of us all on this plane. As you advance in knowledge of this life, we can tell you more of its mystery and loveliness.
How can we advance?
Conquer doubt. Build up hope. Believe in the infinite love.
The cruelties of this world and the sufferings of the innocent make it hard sometimes to believe that the world is ruled by infinite love.
Believe in God's mercy through it all. The suffering of the innocent is more than made up to them here. The pure in heart have a vision of a purifying world where kindness and justice shall reign. They are the hope of the world, and through them we must reach those whose thoughts are all for self and for selfish interests. The hope for the future lies in the philosophy that Christ brought to earth, and which here is our rule of life. Christ was the apostle of love and patience, and he desired to deliver the world from evil through the power of love. But evil held sway by reason of its long continuance and growth, and was too strong, as it has many times since been too strong, to be overcome by spiritual power. But the time is coming when the Christ love will prevail, and wisdom and love together shall rule the world.
One Christmas we asked for a Christmas thought, and the pencil wrote,
We know that you are remembering the birth of Christ on this day, and we believe that both birth and death should be remembered sacredly and reverently, but the life is more to humanity than either. The world should concentrate its thought more on his life with its wonderful wisdom and love.
Chapter 27, Miscellaneous. Some information has been received on a number of subjects that are difficult to classify under other headings. The following probably include the most important statements. Are angels different from other spirits?
The spirits of mortals are different from the angelic host. The angels are more perfected and belong to a higher organism than we at present have. You may call it a higher form, a more progressive state. Many higher forms already exist, and many more are progressing. Consider the eternal progression that is going on in every planet, and how essential the higher forms of life are there to forward that progression. The angels were once mortal, some on Earth, some on other planets. But the many years of their spiritual life in the celestial world have given them a wisdom and knowledge and perfection of character that we of the lower planes have not yet achieved. Therefore we do not speak of ourselves as angels, only as spirits moving along the upward way. Angels are not connected with earthbound spirits as we are. They are moving to other and higher studies and activities. Mary has preferred to stay here, and many are like her. We find abundant opportunities for service here. We are attracted to the planet we came from, and prefer to stay near it for a time.
We inquired concerning two who went over as infants, and were told,
They are not pure spirits yet, for then they would belong to the angelic host. They came as infants, but they possess the immortal spirit, and they differ only in the fact that they have never known sin nor earthly life, material life I should say.
What do you have that they do not?
We have the knowledge of good and evil, and the power of choice, and the education through this to help others who are still in a world of good and evil. But there are many other ways in which they can serve.
These infant spirits are infants no longer, for they have been there many years. They wrote one evening,
We think it interesting to watch these messages to and fro. Can you give us a thought from Earth now?
I don't know that this should have surprised us, but it did. We all at once realized that they knew nothing of earth or material things by experience any more than we knew spirit life by experience. Sis asked if they could not see material things.
They are entrained in that respect. What they would like to know is how you manage to live with all those earthly impediments they hear about.
I asked if they had ever been brought in contact with evil on that side.
Not much. They could not become teachers, for they have no earthly experience. Their work is along other lines. They are trying hard to understand earth life, but many of its faces seem unbelievable to them. The crime and cruelty they only know by descriptions, but they look at it as an almost unbelievable fiction. They do not fully realize it any more than you fully realize this life. They have been taught and believe it as you believe some faraway facts of ancient history. Perhaps that is not a good comparison either, for you have at least some other earthly happenings to compare it with. But they have not, so it is hard for them to understand.
Many months later we were talking with them again and the following was written.
We are learning the Earth language and often listen to the conversations between you and the circle. It seems very wonderful to us, very wonderful that people on Earth are willing to live in the midst of such sin, misery, sickness, ignorance, and poverty, and all the other ills we hear you describe.
Do you not see the ignorant and criminal ones who come over there?
We are not really in touch with them, for we do not try to influence the Earth-born mortals when they first come over. Our work with them is afterward in trying to help them to the various occupations here.
You seem to come together. Are you together all the time?
Mary says, They came over so young that they received most of their education together, and they grew into a companionship that has become a habit as well as a joy. They are alike in temperament, so that naturally they grew into intimate companionship.
I asked if such infants reached maturity earlier there than here.
Yes, because they learn more rapidly. One of them came over several years before the other, as you know. He was far more mature than if he had remained on Earth for that time. He met his little brother and was his helper for a long time, and his father taught him to love the family tie wherever congeniality existed. Then they took up studies together because both were interested in the same things.
Having no sin nor selfishness to overcome, I should have thought they would be on a higher plane by this time.
They could go at any time, and they are connected with circles who are studying higher things. But their father preferred to remain near the earth plane, and they have loved him and stayed with him.
How does the earth appear to them?
Mary says, they look upon it as a mystery and... Will you listen to them?
We are not able to comprehend many things. We hear of the mechanical devices there and wonder much about them. We move in a flash of time. You are studying ways of getting about upon the surface of the earth, in the air, on the water, or maybe under the water. We have heard of your submarines and airplanes, automobiles and railroad trains. It all seems so slow, so difficult, so unnecessary. How do you ever find time to move from one place to another? Then you have to spend so much time in sleep. And Mary tells us that you have to spend time and strength and money in providing things to eat and drink. How can you be patient with it all?
Have you studied the earth enough to be able to sense or understand material things as compared with your spiritual objects? The reply seems to us to show that they do not fully understand, for they still refer to actions rather than to things.
We try to understand. We try to move as slowly as your fastest travel, and we grow impatient. We can have some sensation of taste, but we cannot understand how people would ever be willing to spend much time at it. We have tried our best to sleep, but we could not succeed, and can only guess how that is accomplished. You see, we are handicapped when we try to help earth-born persons when they first arrive here. Ghosts are the uneasy spirits who have left some earth duty undone or some wrong unrighted, and they try to go back again. The spirit of one who has committed a crime or who has wronged someone on earth is never at rest until the wrong is made right. Let this be a lesson to evildoers. There are uneasy souls here who never have peace because they cannot undo the wrong. Criminals learn the lesson too late. And if reincarnation were true, they would gladly go into another earth life to profit by the lesson they have learned here. We wish we could make this plain to all evildoers.
You say they never have peace. Do you mean that literally?
We mean it in connection with mortal life. Of course, the one who has suffered comes here sooner or later, and then the opportunity arrives for righting the wrong. We have many here who are making a study of these wandering spirits, and it is found that they sometimes seem to be seeking lost treasure which to them is of transcendent importance.
With the infinite number who have gone over, space must be well occupied.
Not all space, for there is no limit to space.
In the far, far distance, do the stars thin out or come to an end?
I am told there is no end. All earthly vision ends, but not the universe.
Do you comprehend infinity better than we do here?
Many things are beyond our comprehension yet, but we grow toward the larger understanding by degrees. Would you have all knowledge at once? If all things opened out to you at once, what would you do throughout all eternity except to long for something new? No, knowledge is always progressive, and the farther we go, the broader the outlook. The more we learn, the more infinite seems the knowledge beyond.
The following quotations from our records indicate somewhat the interest that communication arouses on that side. Incidentally, the skeptic will have some difficulty, I think, in explaining how or why they originated in the subconscious mind of the psychic, which, of course, is where such critics would be inclined to place them. Without other introduction, the pencil began to write.
A visitor from another plane wishes to talk. He is interested in our work and wishes you to tell him some of the reasons why communication between the two worlds should continue.
Is it new to him?
Yes, he has never been brought into contact with it on his plane. He left no very strong ties on the earth plane, so he asks in all seriousness why there should be such communication.
Have you not told him your reasons?
Yes, but he wishes yours also.
We think the principal reason is to furnish proofs of the reality of a future existence.
That is of great importance, he admits.
Another reason is to impress mortals that they are preparing their future life now and should be made aware of it.
Yes, he admits that also.
Did he have no fear of death?
No, he had no fear. But he sees that it might be a sad thing if one anticipated either annihilation or the everlasting punishment that was a part of the old creed.
We feel that there is a growing loss of faith in the truth of the Bible and therefore a loss of faith in a future life. Communication might supply material for renewing that faith.
He never doubted the Bible and so never knew that such proof was necessary.
We have so many foreigners who seem to have little faith in a future life, such as anarchists and others who denounce the Bible entirely, or others who have beliefs formed on the creeds prevalent in their own countries. Anything that would convince them would be of value.
These are all arguments that he sees now, but he did not realize the need while there. He lived a moral life with sufficient belief in this life to be comfortably hopeful and fearless of the future, so that the black wall of an unknown eternity had never appeared to him. As he believed in the Bible and in the church, and was a worker in his church associations, he believed these sufficient for anyone. Therefore he had no need for any knowledge beyond the teachings of the church. He wishes to know what the clergymen think of the subject.
Unfortunately, many of them are opposed to such teaching.
He has been here a long time and has not watched the overturning of old creeds. Neither did he realize the vast multitudes coming into your country from heathen lands or from lands where religion was largely a matter of form, ritual, and creed.
Does he see the force of these arguments?
Yes, he says he can see. And as you state your viewpoint, he begins to feel that the work is necessary and must go on. It is sometimes necessary to convince spirits on this side of the value of the work of communication. You no doubt remember that a clergyman here some time ago asked some of these same questions. This clergyman has now become very earnest in his desire to help, and he is often in this circle studying methods. We realize the value of all helpers in the work of spiritual teaching. There are all too few of these. Too many are looking for other things, writing through mediums, attempting materializations, and giving messages that neither inspire nor teach.
Several months later the following was received on the same subject.
Will you listen to one who wishes to talk to you? He is not an acquaintance, but wishes to know the sensation of talking to someone on earth again, for he has never communicated since he has been here, and that has been long. He wishes to know if you believe fear of death can be conquered by means of communication.
We feel and believe that many would lose such fear if communication is absolutely proven. Would you not think so?
He hears through Mary and answers through her. He does not hear earth sounds yet, for he has had no experience. He is interested now for the first time. I have repeated to him what you have said. He says that such conversations must take away the fear of death, because in themselves they are a proof that there is no death. He asks now what you consider the moral value of such work.
We fear that much, if not most, that comes across does harm, but possibly the little that is true does enough good to counterbalance.
Mary does not endorse that, even knowing, as she does, the foolish and false things that are supposed to be messages. You hear more of these than of the quiet and spiritual help that is being asked for and received at all times.
What do you think is the moral value, Mary?
First of all, to energize the spirit life on earth. Second, to teach that life there is preparing the life here. In short, to vitalize all earth life with spiritual thought and perception.
Does this visitor hear this?
He listens and thinks we may be right, but he is slow to receive new thought.
Why has he not known of the work of communication?
Heaven is immeasurable in space and infinite in its occupations and variety of interests. Not all care to commune with earth. Many have never tried, even in the centuries they may have been here. He will ask one more question. Can sinners be saved and sin overcome by the union of heavenly and earthly influence?
We think so, but, Mary, will you not answer that question also?
Yes, and always yes, Mary says. But not under the present conditions of mediumship in general. There is too much self in both receiver and sender. There is too much desire for earthly benefits. All this must disappear, and the true longing for the heavenly life must appear in both sender and receiver. Then a power could be established which would turn souls away from selfishness and draw the world into the brotherly love we hear so much about.
Still another personality appeared one evening with questions for us to answer. He proved to be an earnest student after information, but his first questions aroused our suspicions as to the sincerity of his inquiries. The whole interview was an entire surprise, and, like the previous quotations, should cause the skeptic to think long and carefully, if he is inclined to place their origin in the subconscious mind of the psychic. Sis took up the pencil with the intent to ask Mary some questions, but there was no wait for them. The pencil began at once.
Will you take a message from one who wishes to communicate?
Is it anyone I know?
Will you try to listen to what he says?
Is this Mary?
Will you try to take his message?
Who is writing? Are you anyone whom I know?
Will you try to take his words?
I want to know who is writing first.
He is known here as a student of theosophy, and would like to tell you of his conclusions.
I would like first to know just who you are.
Will you be patient while he explains?
Are you the ancient spirit that once tried to write?
No. I am not the one whom Mary refused to allow. I am a student of many things, and am very interested in the various beliefs of the future. For even here there is room for different beliefs and creeds. I am not convinced of the ways of Eastern philosophers, yet their reasoning is often eloquent and persuasive. What do you believe is the final condition, or the ultimate fate of the soul?
We do not believe the Eastern philosophy, but rather that there is progression on that side as on this, and that the progress continues indefinitely.
Will that theory be received by logicians, do you think? Will you tell me if many there believe in eternal progress? Will you tell me your reasons for believing it?
That is what we have been taught from that side, and it appeals to our reason.
Is it better than a state of heavenly calm and happiness, nirvana? Or better, even, than a return to earth to live out other and higher lives?
But we are told that the soul does not return to earth.
That is the opinion of many wise ones here. I am asking for the wisdom of the earth mind and desire only.
Many here, of course, believe in reincarnation, but it seems so much more reasonable to us that progress goes on from there, rather than to come back into the sins and sorrows of this world to try to progress. It would seem to offer much more happiness to leave all earthly troubles behind forever.
That is admirable, and looks like true happiness. But I wonder if it is the truth?
Cannot you find out if it is the truth?
I am interested in developing myself by study and by contact with the thoughts and beliefs of others.
Then why do you not seek the highest teachers there?
I shall sometime, and will apply myself closely. But at present I am trying to get at some consensus of earth opinion.
If I were looking for higher things, trying to learn of final conditions, I would not look backward to earth conditions.
You do not quite understand me, I am sure, and perhaps it is not necessary. But if one should be a teacher of the progress of life on earth, would he not begin with the lower forms?
Are you a teacher?
I am trying to prepare myself for a teacher, and have a certain delight in the evolution of belief in the past, and the probable evolution of belief in the future.
I still wonder that you do not try to get this from teachers there.
Will you believe that I am not a foolish inquirer? I am truly working along the lines that I have described. The spirits here have evolved too far to be a beginning of such history, and I have wished to go back to the earth and start at the beginning. You are a long way from the beginning, but yet a link in the great chain of evidence. How I wish I could show you the infinitely subtle and varied changes from age to age, from soul to soul, each age leading a little higher in effort and belief, each age overcoming much of superstition and ignorance. Just now belief and faith on earth are being made so complex by the shadings of philosophy, psychology, and other new thought, that it is hard to move on or up in a straight line. But I tell you the study is fascinating, and so you will see it someday. You are looking for an abiding place for your faith. I am studying the different phases, or abiding places which have served for millions of years. I am not frivolous. I am interested, and preparing to help others on this side when I can.
Well, it has seemed to us to be far more satisfactory to go on developing ourselves, our personality, our individuality, continuously on that side, rather than to strive for a state of calm, an eternity of perfection where one, as Mary has said, would have nothing to do but to contemplate one's own bliss.
You have said it. To all of which I say, Amen.
Then why are you a student of theosophy?
Well, are you not interested sometimes in even heathen rites? I am.
Yes, certainly, as a matter of history.
Well, then you can guess the interest I have in this study.
What is your opinion of the final goal?
We are not told definitely. Do you think there would be much interest in life if every step of the future could be seen? Would not life pall and become uninteresting? We are left much of the old adventurous spirit. We are constantly stimulated with the problems that appear before us. And because the earth people cannot understand, they cavil at the difference of opinion expressed on this side. They do not know that because of the freedom of thought and study on this side, our lives are full of tremendous interest. To learn, to know, to choose the best and wisest. That is life.
Was the demon of Socrates his spirit guide?
His guide took the form of a spirit and was near to protect him, but did not suggest any course of action. That was left to Socrates' own judgment. That is where the free will comes in. There are influences from here, but they are not strong enough to sweep human life into them. The spirit within each life is the deciding power as to which influence shall be received. Otherwise, life would lose its power of choice, its free will, and its responsibility. There are influences constantly going out towards humanity from here. There are inspirations toward good. There are sinister suggestions toward evil. And it is the inherent choice of the individual that decides which shall rule his life.
Just how much can you foretell?
Not much. We can see circumstances and the probable results, and many are able to tell the future somewhat from them. But I do not think I am gifted in that way. Some people seem to have a gift of prophecy. Yet it is a psychic gift, or possibly a keen intuition, that can foresee results from certain conditions. We are not creatures of fate. Set that down as a truth not to be denied. What the prophetic gift is, I do not know. But we are free to live our own lives. The future is not ours. Yet we listen with eager interest to our higher teachers who bring to us glad tidings and joyful outlook for the future. But whether this future is far away or nearby is more than we can tell. We do not understand the prophetic gift any more than you do. We have thought it was the gift of far-seeing from the surrounding circumstances. If there is something more than this, there is something more for us to discover.
What do you know about the fourth dimension?
The fourth dimension is as improbable here as there. Mostly a problem for mathematical minds to puzzle over. Maybe I am mistaken, but I have never heard of it here, or seen any evidence.
I suppose you to have 3 dimensions.
Will you give up your idea of our nothingness? We are good solid spirits. There now. The puzzles of this life are beyond those of the mortal thought. There are plenty of enigmas to solve here, you will find. Only that, when found, they are seen to be at root so valuable that it is essential in some way to our life and happiness.
What do physicians find to do there?
Plenty and plenty. Those who come over mentally imbalanced, those needing kind and wise treatment to bring them out of sin or out of selfishness, and those who are projected into this world by accident or suicide or other sudden ways, all need spiritual physicians. The remedial agencies here are mental and spiritual instead of material. But physicians, if of the right stamp, soon learn to adapt their treatment to such cases.
What happens to the mind that has been imbalanced here?
We have many specialists who take charge of these. Many are the result of disease or old age, but those are easily cured. For spirit does not require any gray matter or brain cells for intelligence. Sometimes a snap in the brain or in the arteries, and they come to us very quickly. In such cases, it is without knowledge that they have passed out of the body. That is a condition that has to be watched and cared for here. Else they remain very long in the dream state and do not progress. I have watched many cases on earth but never knew what happened on this side until I came here. Physicians have work to do here, and their labor on earth, and their study of abnormal conditions there, help them here to heal the spirit that is beclouded by the physical, or, rather, the impressions made by the physical while it had power over them. Spirit is very impressionable while on earth, and some of the impressions often remain for a time after they arrive here.
Very early in our efforts with the Ouija board, a personality appeared one evening who moved the little tripod in a different manner from the others, and it spelled out,
I am not lovable, for I am old and homely. I am not lacking in intelligence, but I would never take a prize at a beauty show.
After this whimsical introduction, he continued slowly.
All aspirations are lofty according as they are constructive or destructive. Fate is only another name for organized purpose. Life purposes may be good or evil, but eternal purpose is always good. All good impulses are but the expression of latent purpose. All constructive actions there are a help against the forces of evil. Continue to study life's mysteries and you will accomplish all you wish for good. Death gives a new and broader field, makes life more livable. Life is continuous. Keep in a judicial mood, for life asks many decisions. All actions in the life there help to form the life here. Life and love create a need for continuance of existence. A yearning for immortality is implanted in every individual.
These epigrams were quite a source of astonishment to us. They were given without other preface or explanation. But we were still more astonished later when one evening Ouija spelled,
D. The death of the body is the chance for life to have its fullest expression. Use happiness to further happiness. Hope for great things, and you will not get small things. The best actions are those that make for happiness of persons who have less happiness. Good only makes for good. Evil makes only for disintegration. The happiest spirit is that which has always caused nothing but happiness. Have much charity for him who is trying to rise, though he may at times slip. Use much care in thinking, and the actions will not so often be in vain.
At another time we asked for more such thoughts to open a new record book. Dee at first said she could not give any, but we insisted, and after quite a wait she spelled,
Make no rays of light to pass through darkness unless they are tempered to the eyes that dwell in darkness. Hate so robs reason that the mind renders worthless judgments. Gentle thoughts often create strong ideas in the thinker's mind. Happiness is only soul contentment. Give no cause for sorrow, and you will have no cause for sorrow. Gestures and words sometimes tell things that the mind does not voice. With an opportunity for knowledge, a fool only will say, I hasten away.
The board ceased its motion for a time, and as it started again we could almost hear Dee draw a long breath as she said,
That is enough for this warm evening. Try some yourself.
Nearly 2 years later I was talking about these epigrams and was wondering how Dee came to give them. Sis was sitting with pencil in hand, so she asked if Dee heard what I said.
Dee is here. I heard you talking about my wisdom of earlier days. Tell him it was not my wisdom at all. I was studying with a wise teacher, studying the philosophy of life, and some of his sentences impressed me so much, I repeated them to you.
We took them almost letter perfect, did we not?
Yes, I am sure you did.